We're going to talk about surface area of a sphere. And so a sphere, you can really just think of as like a ball. A normal ball is, if it's perfectly round, it's a sphere. And so when we talk about surface area, remember when we talk about area, you can think of it as you're covering something. So you're covering the whole ball, maybe you're going to paint the ball. That's what area means, or how you can think of it. And so surface area is applied to three-dimensional objects, so we normally say area for two-dimensional objects, like a circle would be area. Surface area is for a three-dimensional object, like a ball. And so the formula for the surface area of a sphere is on your formula sheet, so you don't need to memorize it, but you need to understand it. And so here's what you'll find. Surface area equals 4 times pi times r squared. So remember, when things are written beside each other, that means multiplication. So it's 4 pi r squared. So 4 obviously is just a number. Pi, remember that pi is a symbol for a number. 3.14 is what you're going to use for the GED test. So pi, you can just think of it as a number. You can substitute the number 3.14 in for this symbol. Now r squared means radius. And so what radius are we talking about? So here I'm just going to use an orange, which if it was perfectly round would also be a sphere. If you cut the orange in half, you can see that here we have a circle if we're just looking at the face of this half of the orange, or this half of a sphere. So when you see radius in that formula, it's just the radius of this circle. And remember, the radius is from the center out to the edge. That length is called the radius. That is the length that you need in your formula. If you don't know what radius is, you need to watch that video on circles, radius, and diameter. Remember, the diameter is from one edge to the other through the center. Radius is just from the center to the edge. And so that's what this radius is in that formula. So the formula is actually fairly straightforward. Remember here, though, that it's radius squared, which is not radius times 2. This is an exponent. If you don't know what exponents are, you need to watch that video. So r squared really means radius times radius. So we'll do an example. We'll say here's your sphere. I'm going to kind of show the center of it by these dotted lines here. And let's say that you get a problem and it says that the radius is 3 inches. So radius equals 3 inches. What is the surface area? So all we're going to do is look up on our formula sheet what's the surface area for a sphere, and then we're going to plug in what we know. So surface area equals 4 times pi, and so we want to know the exact answer. And so we're going to plug 3.14 in for pi, because pi is just a number, times radius squared. So we know they're giving us that the radius is 3, so 3 squared. Now you should know your order of operations, and so you should know that you have to do the exponent first. So you're going to do 3 squared first before you do the multiplication. Remember, when you write things with parentheses, that just means multiplication. So here we have 4 times 3.14 times 3 squared. So what is 3 squared? 3 squared is 3 times 3. So 4 times 3.14, I'm just going to rewrite those. 3 times 3 is 9. So now we're just going to take our calculator out, multiply that all together, and you get 113.04. Now this was in inches, and so our units is going to be inches squared. Remember, with any type of a area problem, whether it's surface area or just regular area, you're going to use inches, or you're going to use square units in your answer. And that can be a key if you're looking at the answers, if it's multiple choice, and it gives you a squared unit, that can key you to do an area problem. Now, one thing they might do with these problems is what they call leave in terms of pi, leave in terms of this symbol. So instead of multiplying this out, they're just going to leave it in terms of pi. And so you can, again, look at the answers. If there's a symbol in the answers, then you know you want to leave it in terms of pi. So what does that mean? It just means we don't multiply this out. So, same question, where we have the radius is 3 inches, 4 times pi, but we're just going to leave that symbol there. It represents a number, we're just going to leave the symbol there, times radius squared, 3 squared. So now, again, we have to do the exponent first. 4 times pi, 3 squared is 3 times 3 is 9. And these are all multiplied together. 4 times pi times 9. Remember, in multiplication, it doesn't matter which order you multiply things by. So we can multiply the two numbers together. 4 times 9 is 36 times pi. And so in terms, if we leave it in terms of pi, that's what is called, is in terms of pi, it would be 36 pi. Again, it's going to be inches squared. Now, all this means is 36 times pi. And what do we know pi is just 3.14. So if you multiply 36 times 3.14, you're going to get this answer. So these are it's the same answer. It's just this is written in terms of pi. We'll do another example. So here, let's say, instead of giving us the radius, they give us the diameter. And let's say they say the diameter is 12 feet. So here's where you need to know the relationship between the radius and the diameter. And if you don't know that, you need to watch that video. So here, they've given us the diameter of a sphere and they want us to find the surface area. So before we start this problem, we know we need to find the radius because that's what's in the formula. So what is the radius? The radius is half of the diameter. So you take 12 divided by 2 equals 6. So our radius is 6 feet. That's what we want to use in our formula. Now let's say we look at the answers and they're giving us something like this to choose from. They're leaving it in terms of pi. So when you're starting out the problem, you need to be aware of that so you don't do a bunch of extra work by multiplying this out and then looking at the answer. So let's say these are the answers that they've given you, and you can see that they're in terms of pi. So we're going to leave our answer in terms of pi. So we go to the formula sheet, surface area equals 4 times pi. We're not going to multiply that out because our answers aren't, times radius squared. So we found the radius. Remember, find the radius, not the diameter. Radius squared, 6 squared. So it's 4 times pi. 6 squared is 6 times 6, which is 36. So now we have 4 times pi times 36. We can multiply these two numbers together. And so we get 36 times 4 is 144 pi. And our units were in feet. That's the symbol for feet. Feet squared. And so we know that C is the answer. If we need to know the exact, if it wasn't in terms of pi, all you do is do a multiplication, get your calculator out, 144 times 3.14, and that would give you the answer. We're going to do one more problem, and this is going to be a little bit of a more difficult problem because it will involve algebra. So if you don't know how to do algebra problems, you need to watch the videos on algebra. But let's say they tell us the surface area of a sphere is 314 meters squared. And we need to find out what is the radius. So that's our question, is what is the radius? So we go to our formula sheet, and so we just plug in what we know. Surface area, 314, equals 4 times pi, so we're going to multiply that by 3.14, times radius squared. We don't know what the radius is, so we just leave that symbol there, radius squared. This is what we're solving for in our algebra problem. So we can multiply 4 times 3.14. So I just rewrite this. 314 equals, get your calculator out, what's 4 times 3.14 is 12.56 radius squared. So 12.56 times radius squared. Here's where you need to know algebra, because you need to know how to solve for r. So you need to get rid of this 12.56. The way we do that is divide each side by 12.56. So we have 3.14 divided by 12.56. You get your calculator out and do that. You're going to get 25. 12.56 divided by 12.56 is just 1, so essentially that cancels out. So we're left with 25 equals r squared. But we don't want to know what r squared is. We want to know what the radius is. The radius is just r, not r squared. So again, you need to know this kind of trick with algebra here. How do you get r by itself when it's squared? If it's squared, you do the opposite, which is the square root. So we're going to take the square root of 25 and the square root of r squared. The square root of 25, you can put that in your calculator, or it's something you should know, is 5. The square root of r squared is just r. That's why we did the square root. Something squared, the square root of it is just that thing. So we know that the radius is 5 meters. And that's the answer to that problem.